when you're looking at a town, you want to call the chamber and ask for the director of economic development, because they know who's coming into town. They know what businesses are coming in. They have an idea of what's going on that's really driving the economy. And so we talked with him at length, and he was telling us about the different businesses that were coming in and the newer businesses that were happening. So what we're doing is we're just talking with Chamber of Commerce. He's telling us about these businesses. Then we're talking with the businesses, finding out, what the growth is, what is how much of employment. So we were able to really kind of build for our investors, hey, this is a small town. There were only 44,000 people in the entire county. So the town was even smaller than that, but we used the county number of 44,000, which is small, but we have all these things going on. And so we were able to talk with the investors and say, this is what's happening. Now, some of them did not invest. They said, no, it's just too small. I don't want to do it. They're sad. That's all I got to say. Because we just passed we just finished the second quarter, which was our first quarter, and I paid out distributions. So yeah, we made quite a bit of money in the first 3 months. So
Congrats,
now we can go back to those investors that said no and said yes, here, this is what's happening on this one. We want to tell you about another one. The other thing that we did that really helped is once we had the investors in, and this is kind of just like looking forward, like for your next deal, is we decided that we would invite all the investors to come to the property. And so we waited about 6 weeks after we had purchased. When we purchased it, the leasing office looked like your grandmother's living room. Like it was all beige with burgundy, floral couches. Oh my heavens. And so part of our CapEx budget was to remodel the leasing office. And so we told our property manager, that's the first thing we want done is the leasing office done. And they did a beautiful job. If you look on my Facebook page, you can scroll down, but we have a picture of the original. And then what they did is they painted the walls white. They put up black accents, and then they had like a teal couch and some teal things. And it just looked so, so nice. But we wanted to make sure that was done. So that's why we waited about 6 weeks. And we basically invited the investors to come for the day. And so we're talking, okay, we're going to get the investors to come. What are we going to do? So we rented a charter bus, like a Greyhound or whatever. We made arrangements with a hotel that they could get a discount by saying they were with our group. And we were talking about where to take them. And I was like, this is a no-brainer, guys. We're going to call Marcus with the Chamber of Commerce. Because remember, we've been talking to him all this time. So we call him up and we're like, hey, we've just spent over $5 million in your town. And we are going to bring these people to show them what they have invested in. And so where would you recommend we take them? And he gave us some recommendations. And in the process, he said, well, I'll be happy to go on the bus and be the tour guide. So basically, we went to the Rush Park, the one that brought in the 14 million. It was closed because it was a Friday morning, but he had arranged for the general manager to meet us there. And so he gave us a tour of the park. We were able to see everything. And then as we're driving around, Marcus is, obviously we did tell him, which we probably didn't have to because his job is economic development, but we're like, we don't really care about the tourist stuff. Like we really want to focus on the economy and the businesses. Now the Army Corps of Engineers is in Vicksburg. It's the largest Army Corps of Engineers in the world. It has more PhDs per capita than any other city in the United States. So that was one of our selling points to our investors, as very smart people are living in Vicksburg. And the Army Corps of Engineers, that's a lot of people are employed there. Now, one of the things that we had to be mindful of, and I'll just mention this, was with our financing. When you have a complex, this was 80 units. They wanted it was a Freddie Mac, Freddie Mac, and they wanted to make sure that we had a diverse tenants, that like everyone wasn't Army Corps of Engineers, just because that was such a big employer there in Vicksburg. And so, but it wasn't. I mean, we didn't have to make it up, but it wasn't. But that's one thing when you're looking in a smaller area, and let's say it's the Tyson, chicken plant, make sure that you've got a diverse tenants in there, because if you've got, I think it couldn't be more than 25% for the loan that we were doing, couldn't be more than one employer. So just something to keep in mind when you're looking in a smaller town. You might end up with one big employer, but you've got to have other people in there, because their logic is, if Tyson closes, or if the Army Corps of Engineer closes, then we would lose all of our tenants. So one of the things that we are working on is, and this was a selling point that we had learned from the chamber, is that Viking Cruise Line is making that a port. And they are building a boat just to go up the Mississippi. And so once they build that terminal there, then we're going to try and meet with Viking and see if we can't provide with them some of the apartments for the employees there. So that would be just one way that we could be like a preferred apartment complex for employees. But once they start building the terminal, then we'll work on getting that done. So that's another money that's coming in. So when we were with Marcus, we drove through the ports so they could see that. We took them to a local restaurant for dinner, or for lunch. I'm sorry. It was a lunch. And we just picked a local restaurant. It was one that we had actually eaten at when we were there doing due diligence. And it was an older home that they had turned into a restaurant. So it was a lot of good Southern. I grew up in Florida, so I was super happy. I got to get my greens, and it was really good food. So we took them there for lunch. And then we were able to take them. This was another selling point that we had, is they have an academy that is a STEM. So that's the science, technology, I don't remember what E is, and then math, maybe it's engineering. And it had started in one of the high schools, in a wing of the high school, and it kept growing. You had to test to get into the program. And they had actually partnered with Stephen Covey's planner. What is that planner called?
7 Habits of Successful People or something.
Yeah, so that's the book, but then they have a planner that they do. It's like a goal setting. Oh, it has slipped my mind. It'll come back around. Anyway, they've partnered with them to work with the kids, where they have planners, where they make goals. And it was in this wing of this high school, and it grew. So many kids were in it that they built their own building. And so Marcus, with the Chamber of Commerce, worked it out that we were able to meet with the superintendent of the school district, and he gave us a tour of this campus, and they had not even done the ribbon cutting. So he was like, please don't take any pictures, don't take any video. The public hasn't seen this, but to see the technology and what they are teaching those kids was amazing. I mean, I would expect something like that in Phoenix, where you've got a big metropolitan, deep pockets. This was a small town, and what they were doing is they were putting their resources into their kids so that they could really have a leg up. And they do internships. They do have internships with the Army Corps of Engineers. they have the students run businesses out of this school. So they have their own credit union. And it's run by the students. They do, they cook lunches there. They cook lunch and serve lunch there. The students do for culinary. And then they also do catering. And so they have to keep a budget. They have to say whether or not they're making money. One of our investors, I think he's from Pittsburgh, he told me later that he did not want to come on the tour. Like he said, I just wasn't interested in it. I didn't really feel like Vicksburg really had anything to offer. I just knew that you guys would make some money. He goes, but I cannot tell you how happy I am that I came, that I can see that this town and what it is doing for the people that live there. And so it just, I mean, that made it worth it to me. I was just like, oh my gosh, because he just walked away with this sense of, I'm so glad I invested in this complex, in this town, in this community. And so that's how we were able to basically, in a nutshell, be in a secondary market, was really using the chamber. And then following up with the chamber, having him go with us, talk to the people. They rolled out the red carpet for us. There was no doubt, you know. I'm sure people in town are like, who is this? Because we were in this chartered bus and, you know, but it was really good. And then, of course, we went to the property and they were able to see it. The pictures that we had taken when we purchased it was in the winter, and we went in May. So that was in the spring. So you can imagine all this foliage, everything was green. And when we were walking around the property, I was walking with one of the investors, and she said, I don't know who took your pictures, but you really should fire them, because the pictures did not capture how beautiful this place is. I took the pictures. I didn't tell her. I'm a photographer, like I've done weddings and stuff, but it's just, you know, when we were there, it was just winter time. You can't, you know, you can't make it look beautiful when there's no leaves on the tree. But anyway, so the investors were super happy. And so that worked out really, really well. The other thing, and this is just a little side note, is we have an officer that lives on the property, and he gets a concession. I think it's either 30 or 40%. I don't quite remember. But he drives a car that is a marked police car. And part of, you know, the concession is he takes care of anything that happens. So it helps our property manager. She does live there, but if it's kind of loud at night or something, then she just gives him a call and he walks over and, you know, talks with whoever. So that's something to consider too, is being able to have that in there. And it's worked wonderful. In fact, we have the lowest crime rate out of all the apartment complexes in Vicksburg, 1%.
That's fantastic. Where did you hear about that trick? Is that common practice, or is that something that you guys just decided to do?
Well, it's something that we've known about, but I have discovered in talking with other people, they don't know about it. So that's why I try this. I have a couple of things I try to mention, and that's
smart.
One of them. Yeah, and you can just, you know, go to the police station and, you know, say, hey, we're, you know, we're buying this complex and we're looking for someone that would, you know, looking for a place to live. And you know, you can talk with them. The other thing is one of the economic drivers there is Continental Tire. They have a big plant there. And so right now, honestly, we have a waiting list, but we may not always have one. And so one of our things that we're going to do if we, you know, get where we don't have a waiting list is we'll put up flyers in break rooms. So we'll go to the Continental Tire, put up a flyer in the break room, let them know, you know, that we are available if they're looking for a place to live. And then, like I said, we're going to connect with Viking once they start their construction. So, but right now we have a waiting list. So.